Okay, happy Monday. Let's start seated. Something that feels like you can get into a position of ease. Anything that feels like ease to you. And we'll settle in. Start to center into our breath. Start to build a little bit of a delineation between our Monday and our practice. Slowing down the rate of respiration. Let's give ourselves about 60 more seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, letting the eyes open to receive light if they're closed. And I think we'll transition right to hands and knees tabletop. So tabletop that is structurally supportive, that you can really feel anchored in. And with an exhale that's tuck the chin, tuck the tailbone round the back. And with an inhale, we'll reverse. Drop the belly, lift the chin, lift the tailbone. Exhale into that flexion articulation, middle of the back rounds, chin tucks, tailbone tucks. Inhale into that extension articulation, tailbone lifts, chin lifts, belly drops, big round in the back. Exhale, reverse. At the top of the shape here, give a little lateral movement. Little continuation if you were in practice yesterday or last week, really. We hit those lateral lines pretty hard. And then come back to neutral, drop the belly, lift the tailbone, lift the chin, and give yourself that lateral movement. Once again, be a little bit more delicate here as the lumbar has a little bit more exposure. And then we'll come back to neutral when you're ready and sink back into child's pose. Child's pose is a reset for all of that spinal movement. Forward directional movement there. So let your body settle all the way in. We'll give ourselves about 20 more seconds here. Just anchoring, opportunity to check back in with that rate of respiration, see if it's tweaked, adjusted, see if you want to tweak and adjust that. And then when you feel appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. Curl our toes, lift our seat, and find our way back into a opening down dog here, getting that lift into the hips, driving the tailbone back into that space. Feel some strength in your hands as you establish the shape. And then let's walk our way forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Big upside down L. Think about crafting that and then exhaling back into your fold as you drop and settle back into that fold. Allow yourself to land, allow the head to add some additional length into the fold. And then drift your awareness to your sacrum, and let's roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Coming up nice and slowly, making our way into mountain. Bring your hands together at heart center. Thinking about the distribution of weight, how we can be more energetic and anchored here. And then relax across the top of the shoulders. Keep that energy in the lower half of the body so that you feel that anchored sensation. And then let's just slide our left foot straight back into lunge. So a little check-in with lunge, and then bring the focus into that front knee. And so wherever we land, we're going to take like 15% bend out of the knee, and then just refine that depth. And let's just do that 2 more times. So just like a little subtle pullback, and then refine the depth, and then a little subtle pullback, refine that depth, and then we'll step to the front of the mat, land, recenter, rebalance, re-anchor, and re-energize your mountain shape. And then the second foot, the right foot, slides back. We create that strength and stability, find that, and then just a little retraction, and then into that depth. A little retraction into the depth. One last time into that depth. Hit that solid base, and then we will step forward and find that active, anchored stability of mountain. From that awareness, sweep the arms up and overhead, get that full extension and reach here, craft that space, and then think about creating the upside down L. So we come into that half folded shape, arms extended towards the front of the room, and then just release yourself all the way into the fold. Looking for a little lumbar release, little sacral release as you drop in. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold, plant your hands fully. Let's walk our way back into down dog. And get that full depth and expression in down dog, and then bend the knees to 90 degrees. So we come into this little bear shape. And then just roll back into down dog. And then we'll come forward into that bear shape. And then roll back into down dog. And then one more time. Bear, down dog, tabletop. Flip the tops of the feet, sink back into child's pose. That bear energy, bear shape, the energy required for bear, tweaks that high hamstring, low glute insertion. So, or activates that musculature. So as you relax back in to child's pose, see if you can think about that high hamstring space and what you can do to relax more fully into that. And then let's just take a little pause here. We'll give ourselves 20 more seconds to just downregulate, respiratory rate check in, Think about the tweaks and adjustments in the physicality and the breath and the protectiveness of your space and your practice. And then when it feels appropriate, fingertips grip into the mat. Once again, we'll pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, let's curl the toes, lift the seat, find our way up and into down dog. Oh, get that elevation and strength. And then let's walk our way forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Inhale into half lift. Big L here. Think about the flatness of your spine. Exhale back into fold. And inhale into half lift. Flatness of the spine. Exhale back into fold, releasing into that fold space. And then slide your left foot straight back and into lunge. Drive that length into that left heel. Think about the left quad being flexed and active, and then ground your left heel. And just think about a line of energy here between the heels. We want the heels to be roughly in line with one another. And then pull back actively into that front foot so you activate the arch. And as that front arch activates, roll up into warrior two. So we should have some good strength in that front leg here. And then take your right forearm to your right thigh and just, let's take that top arm, that left arm, and get a little space. And then we'll come back into warrior two. Smooth out that medial opening. Left heel will spin up and we'll find crescent. And we'll drop the hands down to the mat. And as the hands come down to the mat, push back into that right hamstring. So we extend that leg slightly. Maybe that goes to full extension, maybe it doesn't. But we're just offering some length into that lower hamstring now. And then we will rebend the front knee and step forward, finding fold. Inhale into half lift. Get that half lift. Big strength. Nice, Heather. Release yourself back into your fold. And second side. Right foot slides straight back. We land here. We think about the strength here. Right heel grounds, and we think about that line of energy between the heels. Then we pull back and activate the arch on the front foot. As that arch activates, our right hand drifts us up into warrior two. Strong energy on this front leg. Think about being anchored and active there. Left forearm heads towards the left thigh. Right arm can reach up if that feels appropriate. Thinking about lateral line space here, how we can open ourselves up. And maintaining that strength and anchoring on the front leg. Eventually, the right hand draws us back up into two. And then the right heel will spin up. And we'll find our way to crescent. And from crescent, we float the hands down to the mat. Hands become a little bit of an anchor, and then we give ourselves the opportunity to straighten into that front leg. That strength. Staying with the front foot. Eventually, we bend the front knee and step forward into a fold, inhaling into half lift. Exhaling back into fold. Planting our hands and walking to plank. And from plank, we'll lower ourselves to our belly. Flip the tops of the feet. Lift the head into a baby cobra of your choice. Your choice, but I still recommend keeping the head low enough that you're feeling no lumbar compression. It should be the sensation of extension is what we're seeking. And I think because extension has a compressive quality to the posterior, those two are very often conflated. Let's give ourselves 10 seconds here. Maybe a full cycle of breath. And then when you complete, we'll release ourselves down for hands can stack, forehead can rest on those hands. And we find a little space in which we can breathe. And we just start to cycle some breath. One of the things that's super easy to do when we're lying prone like this is to shorten the duration of the respiration. And so the last 10 to 20% on each side of the breath, on the inhale and the exhale, kind of get forgotten about, and we can end up with some stale air. So think about fully inflating and fully exhaling. Fully inflating and fully deflating would be consistent, the lungs. Let's give ourselves about 30 more seconds here. And then when it feels appropriate for you, let's slide our hands underneath our shoulders. We'll press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. And from hands and knees tabletop, we are going to curl the toes underneath us and then lift our knees straight up. So we end up in that bear space. And then push back into down dog. And let's walk forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Drift your awareness to your sacrum. We'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Coming into mountain, bringing our hands together at heart center. Taking our left foot straight back into lunge. Grounding our left heel. Keeping your hands at heart center. And then let's take just a moment of awareness to look at the heels lining up. The front heel here is ideally lined up with the arch of the back foot. And so we have a nice little medial opening. We're going to take a little bit of extra space with that and take that front foot so that it is more lined up with the heel here. So we heel toe that right foot to the right just a touch, and we get a little more space. Now that puts more pressure on the medial line, but sink into this, hands staying roughly at heart center, just kind of a midline is the best thing. And then think about really pushing that lateral edge of the right thigh open. So we're not worried about this torso expansion. We're trying to take this medial line, this abductor musculature, and expand it. And then maybe one more time, we open up that front leg just a little bit wider, keeping that pressure on the lateral edge. And then we'll walk back to our heel to arch alignment and slide back into that right hamstring. So now we have triangle set up. We should have a really nice opening of this lower half. We're going to triangle, but we don't need to involve the arms. You can if you want to, but all we're going to do is take our torso forward to what feels appropriate. Traditional triangle is just arms incorporated here. Looking to think about the torso expansion with the legs ideally being more or less anchored, kind of passively anchored from the work we've done. And then we'll draw ourselves up, bend, and fully express. Warrior two. Nice work. Yeah, beautiful. Left heel spins up. Crescent. And then let's step forward. Potential for some asymmetry here. So allow your body to just readjust, re-land, re-anchor. And then from that stability, when it feels appropriate for you, hands at heart center, we'll slide back on that second side. Right foot slides back. We develop that anchor, then we'll ground, roll. Think about the heel to arch rough alignment. And then we're going to walk that left foot to the left slightly. The energy on that front leg is the peel open, peel open. The center of the shape is expanding. The center of the shape is holding the energy, right? Our goal is to expand that. Maybe one more time, we peel open a little bit wider. Hopefully there's a little more space on this side because of the front side expansion. And then we'll walk back in line, traditional alignment, slide back into your left hamstring, and we'll take our torso forward. Torso comes forward in a way where you can be anchored in the legs, or you can create a triangle expression for the torso. Eventually there'll come a time, not saying it's now, but eventually there'll be a time where you feel balance left to right and bring ourselves back up. Blossom into that two. Hoping to find a lot of space as we do this. And then that right heel spins up and we find crescent. Pushing back into that back leg and settling into the strength. And then we'll step forward. To mountain. Middle of the body. Middle of the body should feel really open here, really free here. And so we're looking to maintain just a little blur. Looking to maintain the space we've created, but add a little glute squeeze. So 10, 15, maybe 20%, not more than that. We're not trying to add like a ton of grip, just a little strength. And then we're going to take ourselves forward into fold. Keep that glute strength as turned on as is possible. And then release all the way into the fold. Looking for the lower and middle back to kind of let go as you settle here. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands. We'll walk back into down dog. Really Drive that strength back. Then bend the knees and find that bear shape. Then roll back into the depth of your down dog. Bend the knees and find that bear shape. Roll back into down dog. Bend the knees and find that bear shape. Roll back into down dog, and then shift forward into plank. And lower yourself down to your belly. Lift the tops of the feet. Squeeze the glutes again, that like 10 to 20% range. 20% is probably high, but we want to take out any sensation in the lumbar. So we have some pretty good glute squeeze here. And then tuck your hands like from right underneath your shoulders to right underneath your elbows. So we slide them back slightly. And then push into the fingertips like you're trying to, well, like you're activating the forearm musculature. But imagine you're trying to inchworm your way forward to the front of your room just by pressing into your fingers. Keep the quads flexed, and then think about getting as light as you can here against your mat or floor. The breath stays fluid and long and full. And then relax and slide your hands underneath your forehead. And just at ease here. Really fully at ease here. And so there's this very successful, very wealthy king with this very culturally forward kingdom. And they've just sent out messengers across the entirety of the kingdom announcing that they will be looking for a new royal artisan. Last 10 seconds here. When it feels right, when it feels ready, when you feel ready, hand slide back underneath the shoulders. We'll press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, push down into the finger mounds, fingerprints, and heels of the hands, and then try to get light in the palm of the hand and in the middle knuckles so that we're really active in the way in which we're engaging our hands. Feel that activity, and then exhale out round the middle of your back. Keep that strength and activity in our hands, and then we're gonna curl our toes underneath us, back is round, and make yourself into like a U. So think about the middle of your back leading the way. The hips follow, right? But we're really trying to round out into the back here. And then settle back into down dog. And note the difference in your shoulders. And then round up. So like tiptoes, middle of the back rounds, trying to make yourself into that U shape again. And then walk forward into hold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Drift your awareness to your sacrum. We'll sweep ourselves up. Hands come together at heart center. Left foot slides back into lunge. Left heel grounds. Hands come behind our back. The backs of the hands press up against the sacrum. and pull the shoulders back, squeeze the elbows back. Think about how you can get that shoulder girdle more involved in this shape. So we are pulling back into this, and then drift your awareness to your belly and think about keeping that in line. We are pulling back without bringing the belly out of the shape. And then release your left hand, your back hand. And now use that extra space to bring the right shoulder back even further. And then release your right hand. And then use that extra space to drop the hips deeper. Yeah, beautiful. And then bring your hands to heart center. We'll roll to the left toe mound and step forward. It's a mountain. Right foot slides back. Stable base. We come to 2 alignment. Hands come to the small of the back sacrum area. Back of the hands pressing against the body. Squeeze the shoulders and the elbows back, but don't let your belly follow. Belly follow forward. Respond, I guess, would be a better way to describe that. And think about how you get the shoulders actively in the shape. We really want to feel that anterior shoulder girdle start to pull here. And then release your right hand back and use that space to bring more energy into the left shoulder. And then release the left hand and use that space to find more depth in the hips. Hands come to heart center. Spin to your right toe mound. We'll step forward. Notice how this kind of medial wrap around the top of the femur, that proximal head of the femur, and how all of this soft tissue is responding. And wrapping around into that glute tissue, into that sacral tissue. From here, hands staying at heart center, we're going to try to feel into this wrap from this medial line all the way around our body as we sink into chair. This is a much more finesse-driven chair than we'd normally be in. We're trying to stay with this musculature as we sink in, not necessarily concerned about the depth here, trying to stay active in this wraparound musculature. And then we'll rise back up. As you get into this top space, flex the quads and squeeze the glutes so you get this really tall, active, stable mountain. And as you do that, note again how this anterior hip sheath supporting the femoral heads is responding to this tightening here. And now we're going to want to stay with this time with some glute squeeze as we, so glutes stay squeezed as we start to sink our way back into this chair. Again, trying to stay with the energy on the front side of these femoral heads. And then rise back up one more time, squeeze the glutes, get that. And this time you can overpower the quads with the glutes and get that little subtle hip energy forward. So we go from neutral to a little bit into this extension space. And then keep this extra bit of energy across the front of the hips, that hip joint, and we'll sink our way back into chair. You go too deep and you lose that sensation in that anterior crease. Come back, reset, find that, and then sink in. And then we'll rise. Relaxed neutral.
Relax may not be the perfect word. An engaged neutral, but we're not over engaging anything. Just neutrally engaged. That's probably a good way to describe that. Sweep the arms up and overhead. And exhale through forward fold. And settle there. Let that soft tissue around the sacrum relax into this fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into your fold. Let's plant our hands. We'll walk our way back into down dog. To be the last little sequence of down dog, we're going to go through that bear down dog shift one last time. So get all the way back into your depth and then come into bear and then come all the way back into down dog. Soften into bear. All the way back into down dog. Soften into bear. Drop to tabletop. Flip the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. Finding your way all the way back into the full recesses of the depth of that shape. And so as the messengers go out, everybody kind of turns their attention to this one little village. There's this very picturesque village, this cove with this giant lake. And over the course of time, for whatever reason, this place has been where the artists of this kingdom have moved. And so it is filled with the kind of people that are obviously going to be selected as for this royal position. Last 20 seconds here. When it feels appropriate, as it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. We'll extend our legs out in front of us. And for one little moment, just find staff and then find your way into a seated fold. We will not be here exceedingly long, but one little fold just to feel into what we've crafted here before we head onto our backs. And so as the royal messengers come through this little village, the artists start getting to work. And they know that they must create an example of their work to present to the king, and the king will select whoever this artist is going to be for this royal position. And so the sculptors start picking out their slabs of marble. And the painters start getting their finest paint brushes. And the potters start working on more and more intricate, grander vases when it feels appropriate. Let's bring ourselves back into staff, and then we're headed onto our backs. Relaxing your way down into a little appreciation here. Paying maybe a little bit of extra attention around that trunk space, the hip joint, the sacral joint, the union between the upper and lower half of the body. And just really relaxing into what feels the most integrated to you. Trying to find your way with new space and new room and new adjustments and tweaks to the physicality of the body. Trying to find your way into integration. And we'll give ourselves just 30 more seconds here. And so all of these artists are working towards the same goal when it feels appropriate for you. Let's bring the bottoms of the feet together and let the knees fall out wide. So bending the knees prior to that if they weren't already. And I know that at the end of the year, the king's going to come visit. He's going to work his way through the rest of the kingdom more or less as a show than anything else. He knows, the kingdom knows, everyone knows that it will be one of these artists from this village. And so as all of these artists start to work, these incredibly intricate, beautiful pieces are being crafted. The sculptors are making bigger and grander and more detailed pieces. And all of the painters and illustrators are working within their own styles and frameworks. But the pieces keep getting larger and larger, becoming more intricate. And it's the same thing with the potters. They're just throwing these huge, grand vases. And as these artists are producing, people from all over the kingdom are coming to observe what they're making. There's just the word is spreading throughout the kingdom that what is being done in this particular village is incredible. Last 30 seconds here. And so an entire industry of tourism starts to develop of people just coming and watching these artists make these spectacular things. And it seems like each piece that is made is more spectacular than the last as they continue to push each other when it feels appropriate, as it feels appropriate. Knees come back to neutral. And we'll add some dynamic movement here, some lateral sway here. Finding our way into that fluid rotation of the hips and spine. This is perfectly in line with what we have put our emphasis on, our focus on. So as you're moving here, really explore that middle of the body. Whether you are finding room or finding obstacles, explore what is here after the focus we've had.
And then the next time the knees fall over to the left, let's let them settle there. Just breathing in those full, complete, fluid cycles of respiration. Really thinking about full, complete, and fluid. Last 20 seconds here on this first side. And then when it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. Give a little lift into bridge. Release the tailbone back down, and we'll let the knees fall over to the second side, the right side. Over the course of the year, the artists in this village create more and more spectacular pieces. And finally, as the year starts to come to a close, the king announces that the village will be the next place, then the last place that he visits in the kingdom. And so they make a fairly grand spectacle out of this event. And they put up this row of pedestals where all of the artists can present their piece to the king, and the king can kind of go down this line of these immaculate creations that these artists have made. And so they set up all of these pedestals, and all the artists come in and they start placing their selected piece on top of these pedestals. And when they're all done, every pedestal but one is filled. And this prankster picks up this like woven basket. One of the members of the community makes these like very utilitarian woven baskets out of reeds from the local lake. And he puts it on the pedestal as a joke, and the crowd kind of gets a little chuckle out of it. And just as the crowd kind of is chuckling, the king arrives, and everyone's attention is drawn to the king. And he starts walking down this row of these artistic creations. When it feels appropriate, as it feels appropriate for you. Let's bring our knees back to neutral. Let our body settle one more time, maybe one last bridge. Ask yourself if you want anything, if you could benefit from anything prior to Shavasana. And if you can, let's offer that to ourselves now. If you have everything you need, if you feel like you are 100% ready for some stillness, then let's drift our way into some stillness for our version of Shavasana this evening. And so one by one, the king goes by each and every one of these artistic creations until he gets to the last pedestal where there's this very plain basket that someone had jokingly put into this competition. And he bellows out, "Who put this here?" Just finding your version of stillness when it feels right for you.
And so, with the king looking for who put this basket into this competition, doing so with a lot of emotion, this prankster kind of gets pushed out from the crowd. The king says, "You made this?" Prankster says, "No." And he says, "Who made this basket?" And this young woman kind of sheepishly comes to the front. She said, "I did. I'm sorry, I did not enter this." King picks up a bottle of water and pours it into the basket. He holds the basket over his head. No water comes out. King looks at this young woman and says, "What inspired you to make this?" I said, "Well, my grandmother and my mother taught me how to make these baskets, and I make these baskets for the people of the community here. They're very handy for carrying around art. They're very handy for carrying and moving water. They're very handy for a lot of things." And the king selects this basket and makes this young woman an offer to join the royal offices, royal artisan. Start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes. And she starts making baskets and teaching people to make baskets. And these baskets end up prolificating across the kingdom. And the kingdom ends up becoming much, much more prosperous because of these very simple baskets. Movement into your wrist, your ankles, your elbows, your knees, shoulders, neck, spine, hips, jaw, eyes, tongue. Eventually, the entirety of the body will move, and we'll utilize that movement to transition from the shapes we are in, and we'll return to a seat. In this seated space, spine gets tall, breath gets fluid, and eyes close. And with your next inhale, we'll bring our hands together, heart center. And over the course of the next 7 days and beyond, can you remind yourself that you don't need to do incredible things to get incredible results? See how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this evening's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Monday, guys. Love the heck out of you. I'll be back next Sunday to recharge, and we'll do this again next Monday. Have a beautiful week. Mwah.